Hello, this is Katie Stocks with Happy Hearted Watercolors, back with part 2 of Winter Day. I went ahead and dried the top part and the bottom part. You'll notice that the glow is very, very subtle on the snow. I also did some repair work in here that I'm not sure that I like, but we'll see how it turns out. Oftentimes we can find something to do with an issue that we're not totally happy with later on in our process. I'm going to go ahead and do the trees in the background, that is the evergreen trees in the background. And the technique I use, I call scrubbledy-doubledy. And so basically I'm going to take a trunk and then start at the top and scrubbledy-doubledy. These are Douglas fir, which is a state tree of Oregon, where I am. And in here on the right-hand side where the sun is, I'm just going to touch with a little bit of the yellow to show the sun on the trees. And I need to do it when it's quite wet so the colors will mix and play together. So we'll go scrubbledy-doubledy again. It's a little darker there, so I'm going to add some of this darker green. This is Hooker's Green with burnt sienna, I believe. That's going in here on the left, and then on the right it's going to be a little more Hooker Green. Scrubbledy-doubledy. And I'm moving over into where this other tree will be, which is behind this one. Probably should have done that one first, huh? Okay, now we're going to add more golden sunlight onto our tree. Branches off to the right that are catching the sun. Each time I go into the yellow, I'm needing to brush off the green that's kind of pulled onto the bristles of the brush so I don't contaminate that little collection of yellow. Now back to scrubbledy-doubledying here. And I'm wanting to put a little more darker color in here in some places to show the depth of the tree. And as it dries, it creates some variation in color. And this is a tree that's behind the hill, so I'm going to very carefully not go behind the hill, not go over the top of the hill because the tree is behind the hill. Every couple strokes of putting yellow golden sunlight on these branches, I'm needing to clean up my brush a little bit. Because it collects the green. See why we call it scrubbledy-doubledy, because I'm just kind of dotting and again, this is the tallest tree, so it's going to have the most visible sun on it. So now here's the other tree. It's not quite as tall, but I wanted a different size than this one's going to be. I need to wait till this one's dry because I'll end up having them running together, and I don't want that. This tree is a little farther away again, so what I want to do is make sure that my colors are a little bit lighter. Maybe adding a little more water to create the illusion of being farther away. And again, I make my trunk and scribbledy-doubledy. And you can see it already looks lighter. Go ahead and feel free during some of these long, tedious parts. Feel free to speed up, go to the settings, and speed up the video. You can go up to 2 times faster. It makes my voice sound funny, but it's worth a laugh. And you get the idea of how to do this just as well. And again, this is going to be a little lighter. I'm happy with that. And I'm going into this tree that I've got here because this is going to be a dark tree, and it won't matter that the tree is going into it, because it'll just cover over, because it's that the tree that you can see here is going to be the colors burnt umber and a little bit of moon glow, which will give the tree trunk just to have a little bit of texture with the way it granulates. Okay, so going in the wrong pot of paint. We want it to be a little darker down in here. So this is still damp, so look what happens when it's damp. You can just kind of let it touch it to the paper, and it spreads out all on its own. Kind of in a neat way. Now this is still wet, so I can't work on it. But what I can work on is I can work on some of these trees that I was telling you was going to be burnt umber and moon glow. So the trees that I'm working on first are going to be these trees right here. And so I'm just going to take and make a wet on dry painting of the tree. And this is going to be a first pass at the tree. I think I'm going to switch brushes, so I like this one better because I can get a bigger swatch. When you're choosing the brush that you're going to use, you want to choose a big brush for a big area, which is why I used the By Mart Special on both the sky and the snow at the bottom. It allows you to work with less strokes. It allows you to make a smoother line. And you're noticing probably that the sky is showing through. Behind this tree. But we're going to add lots more color, so it's going to be okay. Notice how we've already started with a process that I'm really trying to get going here, and that is for it to be darker along this far side and lighter over here on this side. So in order to do that, I'm going to take a little more of the Moon Glow. Just a little bit so you can see it. And while it's still wet, just let this kind of seep in over to the other side, showing the roundness of the tree. Clean the brush, and what I'd like to do, I don't know if I can do this, is just gently wipe off some of this color here so there's not such a hard edge. We'll work on that edge a little later, but I want to get rid of some of that hard edge there. We're eventually going to have a shadow coming here. Now over here, before this dries, I want to get some of that golden glow with my quinacridone gold, which is a, I don't know if it's Daniel Smith or M. Graham, but we definitely want this to be wet while we go just a little bit to the right of that tree. So we've got a little bit more of a glow. Now once that brown paint is dried, it's going to be a little more difficult to do that. But since it's not dry, I can do that. So we're going to add just a little bit more. We want this all to dry evenly and not look streaky. And eventually we'll get some streaks in here for the tree branches. Okay, here we go. Ready? So now we've got this tree. And I'm noticing that the pencil line is shining through underneath the color right here through the paper, so I'm searching quickly for my eraser, which is wandered off somewhere into my pile of stuff, and I can't erase it now. I wanted to erase this line right here because it is kind of dark. Where is my eraser? I can't even blame the dog. So I'm going to make this tree skinnier. And that way I'll be able to erase it later. I don't want to put any paint on top of this line because I want to be able to erase it later. So again, I dip back into my burnt umber and tiny bit of moon glow, which I've made here by going into my palette. Here's my palette. And then I pulled the paint that I want to use right here. So it's just handy for me. Tiny bit of moon glow in there just to darken it up so it doesn't look so red. Okay, so let's take, again, dry on dry. And I'm going to move it over a little bit because see this little dot right here? Yeah, you can see that dot. I'm going to move this over and cover over that little extra dot. It was a bit of the green, I think, that got flipped up from the tree that I was making. And notice the deciduous or the evergreen Douglas fir trees that I've only got 2 of them done. I'm going to need to make this one pretty soon. And I'll be able to do that because it's getting dry. I want it to be pretty dry before I make that next tree there. And again, we're starting to see the focal point here showing up. So I've already gone over that line. We'll see if we can work with it. Work with me, paint, please. Work with me. And I'm tipping to create this darker line here. Ooh, that worked well, didn't it? Brought it right down just as if it was a round tree. So again, grabbing a little bit of the Moon Glow, going over into the other side. Notice when I lift the brush up, we get a little bit of puddling of the paint. So using that to our advantage, we're going to make it look a little, make the tree not look like I painted it, but just having a little bit of variation of color. You don't want to go too many inches without making a change. Okay, now we're going to try the swipe of Golden Glow, quinacridone gold. I'll try to look that up before I start the next section so you can see what color that is. I love this color. It gets really dark if you put it very intense, and it also gets very light. Tipping. See how much lighter this one looks? This first one that I did looks. It really makes a difference. And it's dry. Okay, coming back over to this section, I think I can do this one. And I want each of my trees, front trees, foreground trees, to start in a different place. Again, I'm softening this edge a little bit. So this one is the closest tree. This one's medium, and I'm looking, and I've kind of made an error here because this one should be bigger, but we'll call it a younger tree. That's what we'll do. That will be a younger tree there. And they start right here. And I can see that other tree showing through, so we're going to have to make sure we go dark. You can hear our dog barking. That's Sandy saying hello. She can't see my husband Tom, so she's 14, so she gets a little uptight when she can't see him. But I figure, you know, when you're 14 years old in dog years, you can have a few idiosyncrasies. And she's such a love. We just really like this old girl. Covering it up a little bit. See, it may take a couple more coats, which I may or may not show you on camera, but you will see the very end product. I'm going to show some of the Golden Glow on the tree. Okay, here we go. Okay, we've got 18 minutes. I'm so sorry, this is taking way too long. Try not to make the videos too long because they take a long time to upload. Okay, there's step 2.